back to another episode of the Life Pod, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have on Oscar Ledlin, founder and CEO of Ledlin Group, the Ledlin Development, Ledlin Build, all of it. So thank you very much for joining us today, bro. It means a lot.
Kareem, Michael, boys, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
No, of course. Again, thank you for coming on.
It's been a long time coming.
It has, absolutely. We've been flirting with it.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. And then Google Calendar just doesn't want to cooperate, apparently.
Absolutely.
It said, Google Calendar said our podcast was meant to be tonight at 11 p.m.
Was that your mistake? Our mistake?
Probably mine.
In my calendar, it's in for like 12 hours. I had a couple of my team were trying to book meetings with me for today, and they're like, "What are you doing today?" I'm like,
"What are you doing for 12 hours?"
I'm booked out. Yeah.
He hacked it. That's why it says 11 hours left. He hacked it.
Okay.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people on here that do know who you are. But for those who don't, please, Oscar. Who's Oscar?
Mate, that is a very open-ended question.
Might hit the 11-hour mark.
Yeah, exactly right. I am just turned 30 years old.
Wow.
I live in the beautiful Bayside suburb of Brighton now with my lovely fiance, recently engaged.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I run
with your two dogs.
With my two cavoodles, Franklin and Willow. And I run a small property development company. We focus on commercial business parks. What are you giggling at over there?
You said small. I really hope that was sarcasm.
But that's the thing. I mean, in perspective of other, like you've probably got developers out there where you
like
aspire to be to, and to them they're big. But like, for example,
was that sarcasm? Like, would you?
No, that wasn't
it's
sarcasm.
Not. It's
no.
like,
that's what I loved. I was like, bro,
for us, you're big, but then for you, you're small compared to what you aspire to be to. I guess at one stage, is that sort of
yeah, and it's less of a competitors thing. It's more of like, what are my aspirations and where do I see myself and what do I want to achieve? And for where I'm at right now, it's like just getting warmed up. So small.
I love that though. So much
gangster.
done, so much accomplished so far, and it's
like
just getting warmed up.
Proud but never satisfied, always.
Yeah, exactly.
So sorry, continue. I'll cut you off.
So I lead a small team of incredibly talented and the best property professionals in Melbourne. And we deliver business parks tailored to meet the needs of a young entrepreneurial demographic. So, guys and girls very similar to us here. We deliver office warehouses, office buildings, product we call flexi units, food and beverage properties, and we amalgamate them all together in a mixed-use business park and try and create a bit of a vibe.
Very, very interesting. I've already got a lot of questions, but you go.
Yeah, so... And then obviously the story itself is a big one. If you're not already following Oscar on Instagram, it's on his Instagram in his highlights called Chapter 1. But the sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, long story short is, you're at uni and stuff, and then you're working as well and boxing full time as well, doing some concreting with your dad, and then something changed. You're like, I want to get into this market. I see, but what made you want to go? You know what? Property development. Like, why that? Why didn't you just go building, or why didn't you just stick with concrete? What made you go development?
I think development was a progression where I saw that I could use all elements of business and some of my construction knowledge, because when I was towards the back end of my degree, I was a good fighter and I knew a relative amount of construction knowledge for somebody of that age, and I had a huge passion for business. So I was like, where can I go? What industry can I go into that will encompass business in its full entirety? And my construction knowledge will give me somewhat of a head start. And development seemed like the natural progression.
That in itself, it's like, okay, we've just dived into that. Where did the love for business come from? It's like you were just working for your dad at uni and fighting. It's like, where did this fire about business come from? Was it like looking at your dad's business and going, oh, I feel like I could probably organize this better or run this better, or like going to your fights and seeing how the events are organized? Like, what was it that you're like, this is what I could do better?
I think it was much younger than that for me, and I'm not sure exactly where it came from. Like my dad's business, it was, he did great. He provided for my family, which was amazing, but he wasn't a businessman through and through at that point in my life anyway. He was a great concreter and he ran a small team of concreters and stuff, but he wasn't a mover and shaker by any means at that point in his life. Later in his life, he's done some deals, but I think the interest in business was just something that I noticed early on. I had an interest in saving pocket money and generating more money, and then learn about the concept of business, and then did the lemonade stand, and
Did you actually?
yeah, of
wow.
course, yeah,
Actual lemonade stand. Holy shit.
yeah, lemonade, and then
How are
selling
the margins?
massive, yeah. I think I got like half the money for the ingredients, freaking rated from like the kitchen drawer at home, and stuff like that. So it was pretty much pure profit
Are
margin.
we
but-
expecting Ledlin's lemonade coming this summer?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, there's something in the works. There's always
Oh
something in the
yeah,
works.
we've seen it.
So at the event, everybody just gets free lemonade.
Exactly.
So what Oscar was saying is like he said that he took money from the drawer, so always borrow money to invest. That's what he was saying.
Fully leveraged, 100%.
Leverage.
Yeah.
No money down.
Yeah, exactly right. No, so I think that was my taste for business. I acquired it young, and it just developed over time. I'm not an avid reader. I sort of put myself through the paces and make sure I do read. But
Yeah.
young, I was like, I want to learn about business. So I started reading all like the traditional business books and
What was your first one?
Rich Dad Poor Dad. By
Had a
Kiyosaki.
feeling you were gonna say
it's
that.
always that's the OG. So.
Kiyosaki gets the ball rolling for most people. Doesn't
Yeah, he does. You know what? I don't put a lot of weight in the depth that he goes through
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. Like sometimes I see shit now, I'm like, mate,
What?
give it a
Shut-
rest.
yeah, alright,
shut
You've
up,
been
yeah.
saying your recession's come for the last 30 years. Like if you say it for 30 years, you're bound to be right at some point. But shut the fuck up. But nah, so I think
That's so true.
nowadays, like I don't consume like fuck all of his content.
Yep.
But that book sort of was like a real gateway to me of like, wow, what could I do here? And then from there, it just was a little bit further, and then discussions with people and considering new business opportunity or business options, and then development was the first one where I really had a crack at it.
Yeah, well. So you you completed your bachelor's degree in business.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question I have, all right, you've always had the business mindset, which is fantastic. The thing I would probably want to get into is first of all, why commercial and not residential? And when did that all come into play when you finish your business? Obviously, you had your building background as well, but then it's like, all right, cool, I'm going into development.
Yeah. So my plans with a business degree was to get a job for somebody else and get experience in business working for somebody. And then, after 10 years of building experience, then start a business. And I mean,
It's what we're taught.
I was just about to say, that's people see now, they're like, fucking register a domain, get an Instagram handle, and you've got a business sort of thing. Like this was pre-ecom but it was pre-ecom. So it was get experience and then figure out how to start a business after you've been in the industry for 10, 15 years. But towards the back end of my degree, I started considering, and I was speaking to, lecturers and tutors at uni and stuff saying, would I get more experience, working in my dad's business than I would working in a bigger business? And they sort of said potentially, because you get, a more well-rounded, in a very small business, you can have insight into all aspects of the business.
Correct, yeah.
And I was working for my dad, and he said, listen, if that's the path you want to go down, you want to get experience in this industry, like I'm not going to be around forever. I was working in the business with my older brother. He's like, I'll hand this business down to you one day. So, you've got something to look forward to. And just didn't click with me to be running a concreting company. It just, for whatever reason, I didn't think that was the end goal for me. And it didn't even seem like something that I wanted to be in for too long for
You weren't
experience.
passionate about it as much.
Wasn't passionate about the industry. I think that's what it was. And any or all elements of the industry, I wasn't passionate about. It was just enough for me to be like, this is not what I want to be doing forever. So, Dad, I appreciate, the opportunity, but I want to get into property development. I'll continue working for you, but this is something I really want to do.
What made you go, I can make money fighting, but I feel like there's better options? Like, what made you drop fighting? Was it like the money wasn't going to be enough? Like you had really big goals, like financially, what was it that made you go, I'm good at this, I like it, but there's something else might be better?
I think I just always had bigger aspirations than what I thought fighting could be for me.
Yep.
And when I made that decision, it was because I was at a point with my fighting, not with my business, but in my career as a boxer, I got to the point where I either had to go full-time into fighting or go another way. All the guys that I was fighting, they were full-time fighters. They had big sponsorships. All they would do is,
Train and
eat, train, sleep, and then fight. And like I was running, I was trying to work, 40, 50 hours a week. I was still at uni and trying to fight professionally at that level. And I got offered a big sponsorship, and it was like, all right, this is the segue. Do you want to go full-time fighter, or do you want to, you know, chase your career aspirations in business? And it's probably one of the hardest decisions I ever made, and one that I had like a lot of angst around for some years after I made the decision. It was always like, did I shit the bed on this? Like, did I make the wrong call?
I feel like that's when your business mind would have come into play, and then sort of looked at it statistically, all right? And then obviously, you know, you could have a great fighting career, you can have sponsorships and stuff like that, but then there's a point where, you know, athletes, there's only a small margin after they've completed what they've done, continue to progress to make money. So it's all, I think, you know, maybe your business mind came into play there. It was just like, all right, I'll be better off doing, you know, what I want in this realm, hitting my financial goals, which will be continuous throughout my lifetime, rather than boxing where, does that make sense?
It does. It wasn't the money. It was just the business. And I could probably see how things could have taken shape now. But at that point, I was like, I don't want my business capacity to be limited in an athlete's circumstance.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's different. You know, you start a YouTube channel, you blow up, you can start a protein bar, an energy drink. Like, you can go anywhere.
100%.
But at that point, I was like, I want to do big business, so this isn't the avenue for me. And that's the decision I made. And then when I decided I wanted to get into property development, it was going to be a very small sideline thing, and I was going to continue working for my dad until I was to the point where I was self-sufficient, and I didn't know how long that was going to be. I knew it was going to be a long time. Well, I expected it was going to be a long time just because of the nature of property development and how sporadic income is with settlements and stuff. So I'd scoped a little duplex site in neighbouring suburb from where I live.
And was this a residential or commercial?
It was a residential site.
Yep.
So I had only ever considered residential. I'd never considered commercial development. Like, a lot of people don't consider commercial property at all. It's like, if you're going to buy property, you buy a house, apartment, or...
It wasn't even, I feel like just as of late, meaning like the last few years, it's like it wasn't even a thing. It's like you only bought a commercial. It's like if you had a business where you needed to provide a product or service in that business. Whereas, for example, just like Danielle, it's like she just stores her stuff there, does her work there, but like no transactional stuff is really from there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just come about as of late, again, with like the whole e-commerce thing, or it's just a lot of brands like will just store their clothes there as an example. It's like that. I feel like, and that's really recent. A lot of people didn't understand that concept. It's like you don't need to use that space for the business directly as a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, commercial property has been around forever. It just hasn't been the topic of conversation at the dinner table when you're 16, 17, like mum and dad talk about, oh, you know, this person's bought a house, or this person's got an investment property, or wouldn't it be nice to have a property portfolio? It's always residential. And, you know, commercial property, we've always had warehouses, we've always had shopping centres, banks, all that sort of stuff, but it just hasn't been as widely talked about. But so I met with the bank and discussed this little duplex site. I'd saved about 50 grand. I was working for my old man concreting. I was working at a local garden supply centre, and I was fighting professionally. And I walked into the bank, had my deposit, and I said, I'm ready to buy this site. I'm gonna be a developer.
What was the site?
Where was it?
Yeah,
it was in Somerville, which is on the peninsula. So it was a small allotment, had a house on it, already had a second crossover, and I, without any depth of understanding, was like, oh, I could just build a second house there, and could even subdivide it.
Did you have any idea about like overlays, restrictions?
Nah, nothing. Didn't even know what a zoning was. Yeah. But I just could visualize. I'm like, well, if we just draw a line through there, I had no idea where any of the infrastructure.
Easements, nothing.
Nah. And so I spoke to the bank, and she said, listen, you've got a sufficient deposit to buy the property, but you can't show serviceability. So my income was very sporadic.
Yeah.
You know, fighting, casual employment. They're like, the bank won't lend you the money. And I was like, well, what do I do? And she's like, that's sort of up to you. All right. So I left, went back to the office and registered Ledlin Developments Proprietary Limited. Straight away. Went to the bank the next day, slid my little printed out certificate of registration across the desk, and I was like, I'm here to speak to the business lender now. You know, I'm a businessman.
Wow. See, how did you know to do that?
I think, you know, I was...
Yeah, fact, like, if I did that, I would have like, what the fuck?
Some people don't even know the fact that they can re-borrow through different avenues, like whether it's a business or self or as through a trust. Like, they don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where... It was just a bit of knowledge and just something I thought I'd give a go.
Some people don't even know what serviceability means. Like...
Yeah,
like,
I didn't at the time. Like I didn't at the time, but she said, you know, the bank needs to know that you're going to be able to repay, and you need to show consistent income, blah blah blah. And I talk about it now like it's second nature because it is. But at the time, I was just like
What the
sitting
fuck?
in this lady's office at the Commonwealth Bank in Somerville, like not knowing, you know, it's very foreign. But so I went back the next day, company registration. Here I am, lend me the money now, and she's like, you just don't get it. Like you can't come in with a 2-day-old company that has no service history.
Yeah, you can't.
You just like, no. And I was like, well, shit, what, like, can you give me some advice? I've got the money. What's the problem? And she's like, you need somebody to show that you need to show that you can service the loan. You can't do that by yourself. So you need a guarantor
A
for
guarantor,
a loan.
yeah.
She's like, do you have a parent that can go guarantor? And I was like, no, this is a business thing. Like, I don't want anything like that. And she's like, well, you know, I can't offer you any more advice. So I went back and I was like, if I was going to get someone to go guarantor, I would want it to be a transactional relationship. So I was like, maybe I could find a business partner. So I went to my old man. I was like, listen, this is what I want to do. I found this site. I've registered this company. I've got the deposit. I'm doing it, like, but I need someone to go guarantor. Do you want to go into partnership? And he probably at the time was like, this is a bit cute, like, you know. He looked at it and he was like, yeah, listen, I'm happy to do this, but let's do something commercial so I can pour the concrete. Save a bit of money, get a bit of work out of it, that sort of thing. So that was the segue.
So he
into
shifted
commercial.
you to that.
I love that from your dad.
There you go.
Yeah, do it just commercial though. 'Cause
Yeah.
I need, you know, it'd be good for me too.
Yeah, yeah. And
Which
like
is fair
cost
enough. That's
saving,
in business. That's how you have to, you know.
Yeah.
It's how it benefits you as well.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Yeah.
a competitive advantage. Like his discussion was commercial buildings, particularly back then, they were 90% concrete. We can pour the concrete ourselves and save some money.
So that was a residential site.
That I was looking at.
And you built commercial.
No, didn't buy the site. So
you didn't buy that site?
No,
Oh,
it took
okay.
another 12 months to find a site from there.
Is this the water levels one? Is this where we're going?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly
so
right.
I'm
So
excited.
that was. Are we talking about that? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So
That's gangster.
that was the first site. The site had been purchased by a gentleman. He had gone broke on it. The bank took it back. Another guy bought it off the bank to develop it, and
He went broke.
He didn't go broke. He just couldn't develop it, and he's like, "Well, I can't do anything with it now. I'm going to sell it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to develop it." And he's like, "You can't. Like this site isn't developable." And the guy had terminal cancer, which was very unfortunate.
It's always sad.
Yeah, it is. It's always sad. But he said he would enter into an agreement with me where the purchase was subject to a due diligence clause, which at the time I didn't know what a due diligence clause was, but I just essentially said, I want to buy the site, but I want to be able to get out of it if I can't develop it, sort of thing. And we had 6 months to ascertain whether we could do that or not. So we put a 50 grand deposit down.
Was that the due diligence period?
So that's what's called a due diligence
Yeah,
period. Yeah.
Is it always
I know,
6 months? Is that period always 6 months?
Nah, it's not.
It can vary depending on the development side, how big it is.
Yeah,
a
what
lot.
negotiation.
Yeah,
Sometimes we do
negotiations.
14 days DD. Sometimes, you know.
Which is very rare.
Is it
Yeah.
quote unquote like a cooling off period almost?
No,
If you had to explain it to like the everyday person like that,
It's more
not
like
in
a-
this field.
it's more like a subject to finance or subject to building impairs. Okay.
Yeah, it's a investigative period. So I want to buy the site for X amount, but I only want to buy that site if I can do X, Y, Z, and I've got to go find out if I can do X, Y, Z.
Okay,
So
cool. It's not just you changing your mind. Okay, sweet.
no, but I mean, if you have a completely open due diligence period, it can be just you changing your mind. But anyway, I don't want to digress too much. The site was indevelopable. There was stormwater and sewer issues out the front, and basically what happened was I met with a couple of consultants, and like this was a hugely nerve-wracking process at the time because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was very young. These guys were very old.
Yeah.
Like, and essentially they said, you can't develop it. The levels don't work. And I was like, well, can you explain why? And essentially there wasn't room for the stormwater to get enough fall out of the block and into the drains out the front. The drains were too high. And I was like, well, what's the problem? He's like, the drains are too high. And I'm like, how much too high? And he's like, well, it doesn't matter because there's it's like either it's too high or it's not. And I was like, well, all right. Can you like show us the levels? And he printed off all this sort of stuff. And for whatever reason, we decided to check the levels. And you're not actually allowed to open up a Melbourne Water or Southeast Water asset.
Absolutely not.
So,
Did you?
We did, yeah. So I remember
lying,
like it
he's
was
not
yes-
incriminating
yeah,
himself.
I'm
He's
crossing my
lying.
fingers. Allegedly, no. So I went to this local plumbing supplier's place and got a pit lid lifter, which is like they're like a special hook that lifts these assets. And this guy was like, he didn't want any money for it because he didn't want any record of like lending it to me and hiring it to me and stuff like that. So he just gave me this pit lid lifter, and we went and lifted up some of the pit lids, and we shot the levels and we plotted the levels. And I only knew how to do that from my construction background. And we just like, it was my brother and I, we set up like men at work signs, put our high-vis on, parked the truck out the front. We just looked like we knew what we were doing and shot the levels, and nothing ever come of it. But we marked the levels down, went back to the civil engineer and was like, here's Melbourne water records that you gave us. They don't match up with our levels. What's going on? And he had a look at it, and he's, doing some calculations and stuff like that. And he's like, can you check these? And first he almost read us our rights. He's like, it's illegal, it's a state crime to do this, blah blah blah. I'm like, relax, it's fucking pit. I didn't poison the water. And he's like, you've missed one. So he's like, if you can go back and get that level, I don't know how you're going to do it, and I'm not advising you on how you should do it, but if you can get the correct level of that pit. So we went and plotted that, broke the law again, criminals, and went back, showed it to him. He ran the numbers, and he's like, it works. So the site went from being worth 800K to about 2.4 mil.
Things you do.
Yeah.
But you had already purchased, put down the
We had it under
800.
contract at 800.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because if you can't do anything on the land, then it's just land. Like you can't do anything.
How good's that? Like he bought it and then click of fingers pretty much, and you just 400 grand increase in like quote unquote profit or what it's worth.
It would have been
2.4
way more.
mil.
Oh,
Yeah,
2.4. I had 1.2.
No,
Yeah,
it's almost
yeah.
like what 1.8.
Yeah.
yeah.
Gee,
Yeah.
I heard it went from 800 to 1.2. That's I don't know why I heard that.
So I think it was 1.6 mil increase, and I remember that point in time when that actually happened, because the whole thing was a pointless exercise up until then, and I expected that it was going to be not a pointless exercise, but to no avail. It was experience. My whole mentality was like, if I spend the next 5 years getting experience, I'll be happy. If I make any money, it's a bonus. So that whole exercise of doing all this work, it was like we're just sort of going through the motions to try and learn, and then it was like, fuck, this might actually work, and it did, and that was sort of
Crazy.
That was the first project, and we subdivided that, and then we did 5 factories, then another 5, and then we did 10, and then
So was that your first one?
it was my first property purchase, first introductory to any sort of property acquisition, any sort of debt, and a real construction.
And what
schedule.
year was that in?
2014.
2014. Okay. And when you built SBP,
Yep.
how many properties are in there now?
There will be 147 once complete.
Okay, so what's that? 8 years? 8 years since then. 9 years since then. You started at 5 factories in your first development. Now there's 147. You said, like, fuck, like
Yeah,
that's
fucking huge.
I feel like that in itself is a take home. It's like just keep chipping away. It's like things grow. You build momentum, and then you can use your cash flow to reinvest, and then keep building whatever business or service industry or you might be in. It's like, or product. It's like use it, reinvest it, and just use that as growth and equity to continue building your business. Like that's such a big 9 years, and that's another thing. It's like people want like now. Like, I want to be rich now. I want big business now. It's like everybody sees you for Oscar now with the big business park and the cool car or whatever. But it's like they don't see that shit. They don't see you start off at not having the money or serviceability, to seeing your dad, to getting help, to slowly investing, to saving up all your money to make that initial start. A lot of people just say, "Oh, this guy's like just rich now." Whatever. It comes and it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like even when you say that, when it's like, all right, 2014 was my first introductory to property, and it was part-time, and the journey from there till now has been like, there's been major milestones, there's been major setbacks. Like I've thought I've lost it all time and time again, and like I've fucking had many sleepless nights and stuff like that. And it's not like, all right, now we're doing 40, 50, 60, $80 million projects. Now it's smooth sailing. It's the same journey. It's just different numbers and different problems. So I'm not resting at like, whew, fuck, that was hard back in the day, but now I've made it and like I can cruise along sort of thing. It's like from where I want to be in another 9 years, like I've got to turn it up to a whole nother level.
The problems, everybody says, it's like whatever industry you're in, your problems stay the same. They literally just scale and get bigger. The problems are the same. It's financial, or you're meeting this deadline, or whatever it might be, but they literally just scale. So instead of you having a settlement of, let's just say, 500,000, now it's like 15 million or whatever it is. It's like, and that's even more stressful. It's like everybody thinks, oh, once your business has made it, that's when it becomes easy. It's like, no, it's actually fucking twice as hard, because now everything's so much worse, and there's so many more people in the picture, and like not everybody's as reliable as you need them to be.
Especially when you got like massive companies. Like I know a guy who literally develops like buildings in the city, and loaded, absolutely loaded, and he's got the same stresses. Like he just has the same stresses. But I think for him now, he's just pulled away from it completely. Like he's put a CEO in place, and he's got a massive organization that runs it all now. He just sort of sits there and just fucking does whatever. He still gets emotionally invested and still always freaks out about things. I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong.
Yeah, and I'm sure like the news comes on, there's shit going on in Ukraine, and material shortages,
100%.
and his heart would be racing, and he'd have, other considerations. Is my CEO performing at the level that he should be? Do I need to do this? Like, it's different. Obviously, there's a point in your life, and whether it be because of an age or an achievement level or whatever it is, where you take the foot off the gas a little bit. But for me, that's just not in sight yet.
Wow.
One thing I really wanted to ask is, like, if things went to, let's say, quote unquote ground zero from now, let's just say, God forbid, lost all the business and you just went back to working a 9 to 5, let's just say, or whatever it might be, how would you feel? Would you feel like you're still the same person? What would your sort of thought process be? Not so much in terms of like, what did I do wrong, but more so just like, would you feel different as a person? Because I feel like, again, in today's social media day and age, everybody thinks that money solves all these issues and money makes the world a very beautiful place and things are just sunshine and rainbows all the time, or, having a big business. So like, if you were quote unquote to go back to the average person, for lack of a better example, how would you sort of feel about that?
I mean, up until you said 9 to 5, I felt all right. But like the 9 to 5 thing, I just couldn't.
Instant anxiety.
Yeah, exactly right. Like that triggers so much shit in me about like lack of freedom, and like, I don't want to work 9 to 5. I want to work fucking 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., but I want to be able to do it on my terms, and to be constrained to 9 to 5 for a long period, I just couldn't do. I could work 9 to 5. If I had to start again, like,
that's a better way to put it. What would you have to do
if I had to start again? 9 to 5 probably wouldn't be the first thing. If I literally had, had $0 and couldn't pay rent, well, then I would get a 9 to 5, so I get my weekly paycheck and can eat and shit like that. But the segue away from that would be pretty quick now. It would be much quicker than what it was the first time I did it. And there's different industries that I would try in, and I would like. There's other industries. I've thought about this 1,000 times. There's other industries where I'm like,
fuck, I wouldn't do this and that.
Oh, not whether I could do this or that. It's like, I wouldn't mind having a go at that,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, I've built something now and there's so much potential there and it's amazing, and I want to take it like to 1,000x what it is now. But it's also like, well, if that disappeared, and it'd almost be refreshing to start again. And touch wood, never happens. But if that was the case, I'd take it on the chin.
Yeah, and as a person, how would you feel? Would you feel like, again, it comes up a lot, like your self-worth is like shit? Would you feel sort of crap about yourself because you don't have all this money, you don't have all these things, and you don't have this big brand and backing behind you?
I don't think money's the issue. I think like a proper businessman, if, when push comes to shove and shit happens and they do go back, because a lot of them do, it's knowledge that takes them forward. So they know exactly what the fuck to do and how to do it and how to do it better to just grow again.
Yeah, I mean, massive failures, like, as much as I want to, like, take away the Rolexes, the cars, blah, 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 am I the same person? 100%. Like, I 100% believe that. But a massive failure, particularly if it's public, or like, if you have lived somewhat in the limelight and you've got a really down, like, that's going to, like, your ego, or I'll speak for myself, like, my ego would take a big hit from that. And there would
100%.
definitely be some level of, cooling off after that before I'm like, all right, now I'm ready to take it on. But I don't think it would be long. Like, I'd cop it on the chin and try and look at, like, where did I fail? What did I do wrong? Was there any level of misfortune? Try and push the blame onto bad luck. I don't know. Just trying to be like, how can I be better from that and go again?
That's all you can do.
That's literally like, in my head, I was like, that's the answer that I would have liked to hear. Because a lot of people just go, oh, fuck, you know, it's over now. Let me just move on from that or whatever. But it's like, you went, again, what happened? Why did it happen? What can I do to move forward? And like, I feel like they're the three questions you need to ask yourself, no matter what the circumstance is, no matter what, let's say, unfortunate event occurs. It's what happened? Why did it happen? And how can I move forward? If you're not asking those three, it's like you're going. And I think there's you were saying this about the escalator thingy. It's like if you're not going forward, you're going down. It's like you're never in the same spot. If you're not moving forward, you're not progressing. You're going backwards.
You ever seen those videos where they like do sort of like this is what life is? You know those escalators at the airport where they're flat.
Yeah.
And if you stand still, you go backwards.
If
you keep going forward,
Yeah.
you're going forward.
Yeah.
And then if you're just walking, you're in the same spot.
100%. I mean, like, I have this reflection in my current situation. I don't just think, like, where would I be if it all disappeared? You know, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What did I have no control over? I give those things consideration in my current situation. I'm like, all right, this is my journey for the last, whether I'm looking at 3 months, 12 months, 10 years. What could I have done better? Or what did I do that really helped? Or what didn't I do? Like, what was luck? You know, I'm not ignorant to the fact that, like, luck does play, whether it's good or bad luck. Like, there is the impact of chance on everyone's circumstances, and there's privilege as well. You know, like, we shouldn't get too far into it because it's all a sensitive topic. But I'm straight, white, healthy male. Like, I'm fucking straight away in the top % of, you know, privilege, born in Australia, in the, you know, living in the early 2000s. Like, I'm pretty fucking privileged. Like, I can't be ignorant to that fact. So I consider all that as it is. And I think that makes things easier too, is like, you just got to roll with the punches a little bit. At the moment, it feels like it's going really good for me. Maybe it could be going better. Who knows? Or maybe it could all turn to shit. And like, if and when something changes, you just got to roll with it.
I think that mindset in itself, which we both have in our personal lives and with what we do, it's like you said, like, things are going really well. You know, money might be coming in, you know, business might be successful. You might have a really good network and team around you, but it's like what you said is like, what happens if I could be doing better? And I think that's a really good mindset that not a lot of people carry, but should. I think that's a really valuable mindset to have, where it's like, okay, I'm doing really fucking good. Things are amazing. What happens if they could be excellent? Or what happens if I could just take it up another notch? What happens if I could get another team member, another $100 a week, or like whatever, another project happening?
I think that's when you just, that whole aspect of you doing your best, that you know you can do the best. Whereas like if you're doing mediocre and then you know you could be doing better, that's always going to play in your mind.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I have this mindset. It's like, even at my best, if I'm doing, you know, 100 hours a week, whatever it might be, I always think, there's probably something more I could do. Like, I never feel like I'm at my peak.
Absolutely. And like, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. It's like, the question is, what is your best? And it's like, if you're considering you're doing your best as like you're giving it your best effort, well, then there is some level of capacity. It's like, you do a workout. It's like, if you push till failure, and not like mind failure, like, you know, you fuck yourself and like your legs are failing and shit like that. Well, in terms of effort, that's your best. But in terms of like, how has your prep been leading up to that workout? You know, have you had carbs? Have you eaten too much? It's like, you're just raising the standard for what your capabilities actually are.
True.
I've never thought about it like that in terms, like, obviously in the gym we do, but in terms of business, you don't think about, like, you just think about the current event that's occurring, whether it be signing that deal, whether it be the concrete literally being poured. It's like, cool. Was it raining the day before? Did the trucks come on time? It's like, that's actually so big to think about, the lead up of events that can lead to our best performance.
And it's like, you know, hustle culture is getting demonized at the moment.
Oh,
and
it's
like,
fucked.
And like, but before that, hustle culture was like, it's like, don't sleep, don't eat, work 100 hours a week. Like, if I don't catch up with you, if you haven't got bags under your eyes and like, you know, suffering from an autoimmune disease, you're not working hard enough, you know, like, that is like how it got.
But Oscar just summed up my life.
That's how it got up until, you know, the recent years. And then all of a sudden there's this major shift, and it's like, work when you feel like it. And it's like, that's a load of shit too, you know, but there is this balance, and like, working 100 hours a week isn't necessarily at your best. Like, if you can work 100 hours a week, maintain great relationships, maintain great health, have some me time, and balance every aspect of your life, well, then like, you're doing pretty well then. But like, I think there's a more holistic view that needs to be considered as your best.
I agree. I just have a question for you, just to going back off on what Krim was saying about, you know, if you were to go to ground zero, and I think it'll relate well with people listening, you knowing all the knowledge that you know about everything, but you were put in a situation where you just started from, let's just say the only resources you had was a car and a house. How would you go about, so it's not nothing, but you got a car and a house. How would you go about building, you know, and having the same ambitions and building wealth and everything if you had those resources? What would be the first things you do? Not to put you on the spot.
I mean, I don't think I'd do much different, to be honest. And I think it comes down to, I don't see myself as having much more than a car and a house at the moment. In terms of like where my ambitions are, whether you have a car or a house or you have 10, 20, $30 million in assets, like for me, it's the same shit. Like until I'm at that next level, I'm really just, I'm not fucking around, but like I haven't hit that milestone of having like, you know, huge asset base and like big piles of cash and the house worth 10 million with no mortgage. And like, until I've got those level of things, I see myself still being at that ground zero thing. And I think that's why there's not so much anxiety about like losing it, because like I haven't actually gained that much yet in my perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
So in terms of like, if you took away everything and I was starting again tomorrow, if I was starting in my industry, not a huge amount would change. Like if I got to keep my network and my memory wasn't erased and I got to keep my knowledge and like the game didn't change, I would be back tomorrow doing projects like I'm doing today without a doubt. It's just there would have to be a little bit more focus on, you know, how the sales would work, because I wouldn't have an established brand, but I would put measures in place for that, and yeah, I'd kick straight on.
Actually, touching on that, what do you think sort of built the name? Because again, there's a lot of people that do it. There's a lot of, you know, development people that do it. It's like your name grew. Like everybody knows Ledlin is like they're the GOAT in commercial. Like, how do you think that came about? Where did that sort of that jump and go? Like we have this big name now. For an example, let's take e-tuners as an example. It's like everybody does tuning for cars. But it's like you say e-tuners, even to some people that don't even know about cars, they just know the name. So it's like, where do you think that sort of stemmed from for you? Like, was it like from your dad? Do you think like from your network, your name just went bang?
Yeah.
I think one thing you've done well is your social media presence compared to other developers.
Yeah, I think like it's definitely, my dad ran under, his business was called All About Concrete, and he had great presence, but like, you know, he would meet people that would talk about All About Concrete in a very small construction circle, and they wouldn't know Ledlin because he didn't run it as his business name or anything like that. So I feel like the brand outside of a professional construction circle, Ledlin didn't mean anything up until probably, you know, the recent 2 or 3 years. Social media has been like the biggest impact on that, and then just doing good business, you know, like just doing good shit, right? Creating a good product, creating the best product in the market, marketing well, you know, refined marketing and
Funnels.
Not funnels, just like professionally presented marketing. And it's interesting because the commercial property space, it's not, or until recently, it hasn't had to you haven't had to compete at the level of, say, luxury apartments, designer clothes. What, you know, the marketing was fucking A4 plan, a black and white price list 10 years ago. You know, it was very far behind. Now we're doing, you know, more progressive stuff. So I think just trying to be a market leader in all aspects of the space. So best product, best marketing, and you know, and good business decisions like moral ethics and that sort of stuff.
The whole idea behind you building a community in the office space, in the commercial space, I think is fantastic, because a lot of developers could not give a fuck.
They just want the same price tag.
Yeah, they're just money. They're very statistical. They couldn't care who buys it, whether there's actually a community there or not. They just do their job. They move on to the next. They sell, and then they move on.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree. I see
I think
that.
your community is very important.
Yeah, and we've been very fortunate with that. Like, very early on, I was always long term. I think being younger, you just naturally have a longer term focus. You have longer left to run in the race. So, like, all my decision making was long term from very early on. But we were fortunate enough to find our niche of supplying that young entrepreneurial market. And once we figured out how we can do that with refining the product to be more aesthetic and more functional for these type of business users, and then marketing them and talking to them in a way that they understand. Once we put that together, we really started attracting these like-minded people. And then when you create a space for them, so you bring all these like-minded people together in a business park, that's, the first thing. And
it's fantastic.
we figured out how to do that. And then the second thing is creating an environment that encourages them to collaborate with one another. So this is where we're trying to deliver communal rooftop terrace in the business park. We want good coffee shops there. We want a communal car wash. So it's Michael, you and me on a Friday afternoon, we bump into each other down the car wash, washing our cars, and we meet. And then, we talk about what are we going to do? Oh, there's a communal podcast room. Let's go shoot a podcast on Friday night. And that builds, presence for both our businesses. It shares ideas. And then, yeah, exactly right. And then, we, for whatever reason, attract a lot of young female entrepreneurs. So we have, a high proportion of female business owners in our business parks than traditional. So that helps to create just I don't know if it's a more feminine environment, just a calmer and there's cavoodles running around and there's
no testosterone.
Yeah, there's not a lot of test pumping around. Everyone's walking around with their chest out. It's just different. So you bring them into the mix and then, throw in a couple of co-working office spaces, communal boardroom, outdoor eating areas, and all of a sudden you've got these environments that encourage people to get to know each other, and then the community forms from there.
Even with the Springvale now, I can almost compare it to like walking into an Apple store. You walk into an Apple store, there's nice lights, it's very calm, it's just like very welcoming. It's like you drive into the Springvale Park, like there's nice trees, everything's well groomed, everything's trimmed, all the business signs look nice. Like, it's very welcoming. And like you said, it puts you in like this mindset of like, who's here? What can I do? How can I speak to people? Not just like, just a bunch of factories.
And it's 1,001%ers that make up to that feeling. And we started getting that early, and we would laugh when we hear it, and then it just becomes so frequent. It was everybody who would come to the business park, they would get there and they'd be like, it's just got a nice vibe. And nobody could pinpoint what it is, but it's 1,000 little things. It's the landscaping as you're coming into the place. It's the quarterly window cleaning built into the OC so the building's always presented well. It's appropriate signage. It's, you drive down and there's a couple of guys and girls on a sustainable built park bench having their lunch outside in the sun. And it's these things that just create that environment. And then from there, put the like-minded people together and they take care of the rest.
Well, even that in itself, like I said, the like-minded people, like let's say I'm a random person going to buy a piece of artwork from Danielle. But I see, drive in, first shop you see is an automotive shop with all these nice supercars usually out the front. And then you've got this development place. And then you've got this really, boutique gym. And then you're like, again, it's like, well, it even just stimulates yourself as a quote unquote average person. It's like, what could I be doing? Or what are these people doing? What am I doing wrong? How can I be better? So I feel like, like you said, that environment is so stimulating and welcoming that it really it encourages just to become a better version of yourself, like without even doing anything.
It's a very aspirational environment. You pull up and Gordy will have his GT3 RS out the front. There'll be a Lambo in for a twin turbo kit, just ridiculous cars. And then next door to him, Harley will have a G-Wagon parked out the front. And then James has got his C63 wagon. And it's just like, I don't know how many G-Wagons there is in the business. It's like G-Wagons and cavoodles seem to be like, they're more prevalent than anywhere.
Just put a fucking Mercedes sign at the front
of
it.
Yeah.
It's a prerequisite to buy. You have to have a G-Wagon and a cavoodle, or you're not allowed to buy property.
Just out of curiosity, at what stage throughout the development, like you build your commercial factories, when does OC come into play?
So that comes in.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you explain it? Because I don't know what that is.
OC's Owners Corporation.
Can you define what that is? Because I'm sure like there's a lot of people that won't know what that is.
So it's essentially a management infrastructure to take care of the communal benefits of the business park. So
which only came into play quite recently.
It's become more and more prevalent just through design. So if we share a driveway, it's like who's responsible for the driveway? If it needs maintenance, whose insurance covers it if somebody was to fall over and hurt themselves. And then, it flows on to things like the communal garden areas, the communal windows and things of this sort of nature. So the OC is in place following certificate of occupancy. So when the building's complete, the day after the building's complete, we have what's called an interim general meeting, which is where the OC is set up.
Yeah.
And at that point, the OC is in place. But at that point in time, the developer still owns all the property, so he
Has
you know,
to
he's every
fork out,
member.
yeah.
He's
So you have to fork out the money for the OC.
Yeah, and you write all the rules, like you set up all the rules for the OC. So we set up different rules to what another, there's template rules, and 99% of the developers are like, yep, sign off on the template rules. That's the OC form. But we're like, no, we want to put measures in place to, I guess, curate the environment we want long term, and the OC controls that.
So if you just do a fresh, like a new business park, and you've got a 50% vacancy rate, do you have to pay the OC for those other ones? How does it work like that in that regard?
If I own,
you own the other 50% that are not,
yeah, absolutely.
okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, but if Springvale, a Ledlin Business Park would never have a 50% vacancy rate. So
I know. I was just, I know.
What is it? Aren't they like pretty much sold before like buildings even commence?
Yeah, they usually.
Yeah, we've never finished a project without selling it.
And that is fantastic.
And how does that work? Do you like just show them? Do you show them plans and photos of what the finished product would look like, and they're just like, "Yep, I love it. This is what I need to come in." Is that usually how it sort of goes?
Well, very early on, we didn't have recent projects or anything like that, so it was all just like, "Here's the plans, here's the vision," and it was very much a like, this is what we're going to deliver, and I give you my word on it type thing. We have contracts in place and all that sort of stuff, but there wasn't a lot to represent what we were going to deliver. And then after we got a few projects under our belt, it became like there's a bit more trust in the brand. We could say, oh, our recent project's here, and you can look at that and that sort of thing. And now more recently, we have a display suite at Springvale Business Park. So for potential purchases of future projects, we can bring them down there. They can come to Springvale Business Park. They feel the vibe. They see the community. They can see how many businesses are in the area, how many properties up for lease, which is none, these sort of things. And then we could talk through our next business park, show them artist impressions, plans, some of the things we have planned for the community and that sort of stuff.
Building excitement around it.
So I think it's
so good.
On a very simple level, that's almost showing results. So like that's what helps build that trust and that easiness and that willingness to buy. And I think that comes down to any business. Let's just say personal training. It's like you could be jacked or whatever, but it's like if you're showing people results, like I can help you grow muscle, I can help you lose weight. It's like people that automatically builds that trust. And now you're going, cool, this is our business park and we're going to make the next one even better. It's like if this is our standard and we're going to shit on that and beat it, again, like people go, oh, well, that's amazing. And if you're saying it's going to be even better, then I have no reason not to buy.
And then it becomes brand, right? And we have clients, we have interstate clients or people that aren't even clients yet, and they'll reach out and they'll be like, I've got this much money, what can I buy from you? And they don't care. They haven't been to Springvale Business Park. They haven't seen our other projects. They don't know what we're selling. They don't care where it is. They don't care what it is. They just trust that if they buy a commercial property from Ledlin, then it's a great one.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's humbling for us, but it's like, it's taken, 8, 9, almost 10 years to get to that point where people, they don't need to know what color are we going to paint them, what suburb they're in, what inclusions, what color the floors are going to be, what color taps are going to be. They just know that we will do
it's a high standard,
the highest standard in the market, and it'll be competitively priced, and they're happy with that.
So again, you got into development. Are you curious? Have you gotten into like residential at all? Is it only commercial for you?
No.
And are you only going to stick to commercial?
Apart from a passion project or two or something like that later on down the track, my sole focus is in commercial property. Yeah.
So what are your takes on people and investors always sort of mentioning that you need some sort of diversity in a portfolio?
I mean, there's definitely weight in that. And for me, diversity can mean so many different things. It can mean different suburbs. It can mean different asset classes within commercial property. So commercial property, there would be maybe 30 different property types,
there's heaps, yeah.
There's warehouses, offices, there's storage, there's flexi units, there's different sizes of all those sort of things. There is service stations, there is self-storage units, there's shopping centers, there's airports, there's train stations, there's shipping, there's fucking, literally dozens of different commercial property types, and they all operate and perform better or worse in different circumstances, macroeconomic, environmental impacts, stuff like that. So I think we can have diversity
within that class.
Yeah, within different niche. And for me, that might not, it might be like different size business parks in regional, business parks in, metro, outer suburban. Yeah.
But it's still good though, like I think one of the sorry, the main things with commercial is like your Springvale Park at the moment. Like if you have, for whatever reason, someone leave, you could put someone straight back in there because the space can be
high.
no, the space can be utilized. Whereas if you have a commercial property like a manufacturing plant, for example, sometimes they're designed where it's really hard to put tenants back in to put, get a lease in there because it can't be utilized, and there's a lot of cost involved in that too.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good thing to put. Again, I'm just going to take Ali's. So from Wanted Tinting, it's like, it's an amazing space. He's got upstairs mezzanine, he's got an office. It's like if he left and literally office workers needed a space, they could use it. Or if somebody wanted to do, again, Danielle wanted to do painting, or someone automotive, like the space can be utilized in so many different ways. So I think finding tenants is, I'm not sure if, I'm assuming that was intentional of how they've been built.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different products to tailor to meet a lot of different demands, and like there is a lot of diversity among the users within the business park. There are a few that we don't allow, like, so we don't allow heavy manufacturing, we don't allow panel beaters and stuff like that, and like
that would fuck the environment of that.
Everyone's dinged a panel on their car, and panel beaters are needed and stuff, but they're just not needed within Ledlin projects. So it's just about upholding the environment. If Danielle's trying to shoot some content she's catching up with the rock, whatever she's doing.
A fucking semi backing up.
Yeah, you got somebody banging on a panel out the door next. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't work. So we need to protect that. But there is a diverse use, and it's just an incredibly strong market in an emerging market as well. E-commerce has just changed the platform of property. It changes how we use property. It changes how much space we need within a property, and our sector has really thrived off the back of that. And I think it's really only just getting started.
There's two main things I wanted to touch on. One of them is being similar to what Michael was saying about investing. So if, let's just say you're a 20-year-old kid out of school, you saved up some money, you're looking to invest, outside of your professional opinion as well, but like even on a personal level, what would you recommend would be a smartest investment option? Would it be residential? Would it be commercial? It doesn't have to be through you, but like in terms of cash flow and sort of return on investment and like a positively geared investment, what would you recommend if you had to give a general piece of advice? Just like,
I think the first place that I would invest if I lost all my money and or let's just say I'm 20 years old and I'm looking for somewhere I want to place my money and get the biggest return on investment, I honestly would invest in myself, in education, in mindset, and in any form of personal performance improvement.
Yeah.
I think that is like the most underrated area of investment, like that we just don't talk about it enough.
100%. Yeah.
We talk about personal development and we talk about doing things, but we never talk about it with an investment point of view. It's like, oh, we should read and stuff like that. It's like, well, block out time to read. It's like, are you invested enough to block out time to read? And it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll do that. And it's like, oh, you need to network and surround yourself with like, people who have done what you do. And it's like, all right, well, this person's going to charge 10 grand to tell you what they've done over 10 weeks. You're like, I'm not fucking paying 10 grand to learn about that. Well, it's like, okay, you want to do these things and you'll put them on a fucking black screen and reshare them and say that it's great to do, but if you're not actually going to invest in doing it, then like you're missing the entire point. So I think first place to invest is like in yourself, in whichever area you think needs the most development. And there's so many different areas for that. It's particular career focus, niche knowledge, general business. Then there's like the whole mindset, I guess emotional control and all these things that are tested as you become, whether it's a business owner, a high performing employee or an investor, like your emotions are tested all throughout. So I think personal development. Mindset's
so key.
Like,
it's the key.
Yeah, exactly. So I think investing in that, which I'm still doing that, and like all the highest performers I know at any level are still investing heavily in
themselves.
But it
health
doesn't
and their
stop.
mindset.
I don't think it stops.
No.
There's no end. There's no end thing. Oh yeah, I'm completely okay with myself now. It's you're always developing, you're always learning, and you're always moving forward.
It's literally why we're here. It's why we do this. Like, personal development does never stop. It's like you stop learning when you die. It's like you're learning something new. Like I literally didn't know what OC was. Is that what it's called? OC?
Owners Corporation.
Yeah, it's like there you go. It's like something so small, and it's like, but again, you have to have those intentions behind it. Am I willing and do I want to invest? Even the time behind it. Like, a lot of people have the money, but they go, I don't have the time, or they don't want to make the time to set aside because they'd rather just do other shit.
Yeah, and investment can be so many different things, right? It can be sacrificing time, it can be sacrificing funds, it can be sacrificing other opportunities, and you guys are doing it right now. You know, you're investing your time and energy, and then there's all the stuff that goes on after the hour-long chat, the less fun shit of editing and posting and
100%,
scheduling and stuff, and you're doing that all for the benefit of others and some of the benefit of your own personal development. I think that's where we need to start.
Something I was having a chat about with a friend of mine yesterday, and again, it's like our jobs, what we actually do is the fun part. It's everything outside of that shit, and people don't see. It's like, cool, I like training people. He likes selling homes. You like selling property, commercial property. It's like the contracts, the writing up, the legalities. It's the making the calls. It's, you know, has this person responded to the due diligence or whatever the hell it is. It's like writing the programs. It's all the back end shit that nobody actually likes doing that makes up majority of the job itself, where people don't want to be doing that stuff.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, real estate's so good. Do you enjoy it? It looks so fun. Yeah. Try putting boards out on a Saturday when you're just getting started. It's
yeah, exactly right. It's like anything. There's the shit part of any, of any.
The majority
activity.
of the time, my point was like the shit part usually makes up majority of it. And it's like that 1% that we put on Instagram or whatever, like, cool, sold, or, sold.
The highlights.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
What do you do? You got such large projects now. Like, what do you do to sort of mitigate stress? Do you have a risk mitigation process, or because obviously there would be a lot of stress entailed with these large projects.
Yeah. I mean,
is that where you go back to yourself and your own personal development? Like, how do you deal with
there's
it all?
so many different aspects of it, and it's like, what is the stress, and is it make or break stress, or is it, like yesterday you had a $120,000 unforeseen costs. Like, it's just, and that is like, it was
my household goods.
It was a stressful 2 hours, and then it was a stressful 10 minutes when I was revisiting it in conversation with my missus last night over dinner, and that's it. That's stress managed, stress done. I think stress management is probably the biggest thing, because if you're doing anything at an elevated level, whether it's an elite level or an extreme level or just an above average level, if you're doing anything at an elevated level, there's going to be stress.
Yeah.
There's no mitigation or removal of the stress. It's just how you're going to manage it.
Yeah,
so I think stress management is something that I've recently started focusing more on, and it's having the outlets like we have, which is gym is a big one. I'm trying to meditate more. I meditated 3 times a week for the last month, which is a big thing for me. And it's just finding different activities to, I guess, manage that stress, whether it's spending more quality time with your family and friends, physical activity, switching off, trying to watch a movie, reading a book. I don't know.
Meditation's actually so overlooked.
It's incredibly underrated.
It's so underrated. Yeah. Just even 5-10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
To sit with yourself and just, fucking
be absorb
and just ground.
Yeah.
It's so underrated. You don't see the results in the first week or week and a half. You see it after maybe 2-3 weeks, where the urge to look at your phone and go on social media is like, nah, okay, I'm good. You're much more zoned in
100%.
And calm. And I think that's so important when you at your level, or, you've got business and such large investments. Meditation is fantastic.
Honestly, it's important at every level.
100%.
Any level.
Yeah. Whether you're just starting off, or even whether you're just in high school, it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it needs to be spoken about more. And I think there's so much more understanding that can be explored in that space. And there's more and more science coming out about studying brainwaves and what that has, and the long lasting impact after the 5 or 10 minutes of meditation. But I think it's definitely something that we'll be seeing more and more of in the entrepreneurial space.
100%. I think when you get to have that side of yourself too, you just excel. You're much more constructed.
I was literally telling my mum yesterday. I think it's a good thing to even end on. It's you can only help others when you're the best version of yourself. And again, it's if you're stressed, everybody knows you're not the best version of yourself. You're angry, you're upset, you're eagerly, your temper just goes through the roof. It's even on a simple level, you can't concentrate on specific tasks because your brain's rushing about, that 120 grand, this has to be paid or this has to be sorted. But I'm trying to write this contract. And it's you're not actually giving each task that needs to be done 100% because your brain's preoccupied doing something else.
You always feel like you're running late. You always feel like you haven't got enough
And
time.
when you're in a rush, yeah.
Yeah, it
And
just
it's just like when you got a partner too, it's just like, oh, babe, just fuck, like, just
Yeah.
leave
You
me
don't want to
alone.
speak to anyone.
You don't want
Yeah.
to speak to anyone. You're just fucking stressed.
yeah. And at its core, the biggest thing is you're not enjoying
100%,
life.
yeah.
Like when you're in a situation where you're bouncing from task to task and like you're not enjoying the moment, like you're essentially wasting, the days that we have, and like whatever it is, 80, 90, 100 years, it's not a huge amount of time. I think like there's so much more to be done for just enjoying even the shit parts, putting the boards out on the weekend and fucking, writing programs at 10 o'clock at night after check-ins or whatever it is. It's like when you're not in a calm state, then you don't see the glimpses of joy in all that shit. And I think you miss out on a lot because of that.
Like when you boys, how good's the difference in a drive when you're going to a destination when you rush compared to when you're just cruising? Like it's just it's such a better drive because
Yeah.
there's no rush, no nothing. Just before we wrap on, I just want to get your opinion. What do you think the future of commercial real estate looks like?
You're asking me to give away my secrets here.
Not obviously not with, but what do you think it looks like? Because we've been told, like I've done a bachelor's in property, and the way that they're sort of describing the future of real estate in terms of commercial and residential, it's fucking interesting. I just wanted to see what your thoughts on it would be.
I mean, this in the immediate 5 to 10 years, I think it's just a refinement of what we have. It's got to be more functional because affordability continues to be a challenge in property, and that's always going to be the case for as long as construction costs keep going up, unless there's some big technological advance, which isn't in the immediate future.
Nope.
Construction costs are going to keep going up. Land is going to keep going up. So affordability becomes something that we need to consider. So functionality, being able to, whether it's store as many boxes, produce as many goods, whatever it is that you're doing in the commercial space, you need to be able to do more of that in a small space for affordability. So I think things continue to be refined, and that's where we're going further into the common amenity, because it's, say we've got a business park of 147 businesses. If there's 40 businesses in there that have the odd podcast, or say there's 10 businesses in there that have the odd podcast, for them to each set up a podcast studio like this within their space is so inefficient when we can have one communal space. Then it's the same with boardrooms. Recently now we're telling our occupants, like, rather than have 15, 20 square meters of their office partitioned off to use for 2 or 3 hours a week of, big boardroom meetings, we have a communal boardroom that they can reserve. It's cleaned by the OC, so it's always spotless. You can book it ahead of time so nobody's going to be in it, and then you get that space back within your building. So it's just about creating those efficiencies in ways that haven't been done before. I think that's what the immediate future of property looks like.
Interesting. Cool.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. So I've have you seen what they're doing in Dubai? What their plans are for Dubai with that wall? That's fucked.
Yeah.
What I've been told and what I can get a gauge of what's going to happen, probably not in the immediate future in the sense of like 5 to 10 years, but maybe like 20 years, 15 to 20 years. They're going to essentially put everything into one. So we're going to have buildings with residential, office, gyms, pools, restaurants, all in one. And what I'm seeing too from a residential standpoint is we're first going to move into more sub-cities. So Box Hill is going to get larger, Geelong's going to get larger. The CBD will be the CBD always, but we're going to see cities sporadically around Victoria start to get built with buildings and everything, like I'm sort of saying now, to accommodate obviously for a population growth too.
So are you saying, does that mean like, for example, Box Hill and like all these other areas will look more like CBDs, like more high rises?
So what you're going to see is Box Hill is going to have an influx of high rises. That's what they're saying. And just as an example, Geelong too, we're just going to see all these sub-cities start to pop up with buildings and high rises and everything to accommodate for like a community. So it's almost going to be like you will not need to leave Box Hill to go to the CBD because you'll have amenities within Box Hill. Yeah. And then there's also going to that's the shift that I'm seeing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes in the immediate future of like the decentralization of the CBD.
Yeah.
Where it used to be like, if I'm a developer and you're an engineer and you're an architect, we all have our office within the CBD. So when we need to have a meeting, we say, hey, Mr. Architect, can we go meet in the engineer's office, on Friday and have a quick conversation. Yep, we'll do that. Now with technology like Zoom and not even the technology, just off the back of COVID, the acceptance of that technology, we don't need to do that anymore. I can be wherever the fuck I want to be. You can be in Spain, and you can be, provided we're all happy to link up on a time zone, we jump on a Zoom and have the same conversation. So the decentralization of the CBD, which is why we're also moving into suburban offices, and then it becomes like you still need your office unless you want to work from home. So if you don't want to work from home, you need an office. You're not going to go to the CBD. Let's put those offices closer to your home so you spend
100%.
less time traveling.
Yeah, and it's all going to intertwine with the fact of like the environment. So
absolutely, it's better on infrastructure.
100%.
Why the fuck at 8:30 in the morning would we all drive to the same place in gridlock traffic, and then 5 o'clock all drive out? So we're all at the same cafes lining up. We're all putting pressure on the same sewage and stormwater. It's just it needs to happen.
My
and I think
cortisol just went so high.
Yeah, exactly right. Everyone's just got uncomfortable.
What the fuck? So another aspect into the future of it is the environmental impact of how things are built will play a massive part too. So I think buildings will become much more sustainable on their own in terms of the use of energy and recycling and all of that too. I'll show you after the podcast, there's a mad office building in the Netherlands where it just literally, it's self-sufficient. So it's got like solar panels on one whole side of the building from when the sun, and it just uses all of that energy within inside too. It's like got computers within it's just fucked. Like,
yeah, and I mean that's coming pretty quickly. There was a big change to the planning scheme in July, like for councils to have more reign over impact on environmental sustainable design. So the ESD regulations have changed. They're being more pushy. It's happening quick. It's just about, it's a hard thing to do because, like, for instance, we just had council, they're like, you're designing a project, we want to forward think 20 years, electrical vehicles, we want the infrastructure to have all these electrical vehicle chargers.
Car charging
and we're like, we're putting EV chargers in now, but how many do we need in 20 years? We don't know. Like electric vehicles, like that's the way that it looks like it's going, but who knows? It could be, it could be solar vehicles. It could
be anything, hydrogen. Like, we don't fucking know.
And then it's like, all right, what do these chargers need to look like? Like, are they going to be wireless? Can there be group chargers? Can you park 3 cars and they all feed off that? Like, we don't know yet. So you're trying to forward plan for something in 20 years that we don't have the understanding of. It is challenging, but
of course it is,
I think now that like the intention is heading in the right direction, there'll be a bit more free flow of ideas and some outcome.
Yeah. Sure, it's exciting times in the future. Yeah. Fuck. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm just taking all that in. You guys, I was like, whoa, okay.
Got some great ideas. We'll probably have a chat after.
Absolutely.
I think we could wrap up there. That was amazing. I got so much out of that. I learned a few things.
Me too.
Got my brain ticking. Really, really good to see perspective, and also just on a personal level, how like grounded you are. Again, a lot of people, it's been coming up a lot in social media. We're like, people think, money changes people and fame and having a big network. And it's like,
I was an arsehole before the money.
now you're nice. Now you're nice.
Oh, I like that.
Other than that, man, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for incriminating yourself on here. We appreciate that lots. If you guys aren't already, follow Oscar on Instagram. Does Ledlin have an Instagram?
No.
How cool is that? Anyways, like, doing so well, no social media. Anyways, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for the chat, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, Oscar.